The recent history of Jamaica has been punctuated by this deep collective breath, the kind you take after running a marathon in a hurricane.
Right.
Hurricane Melissa didn't just test the island's infrastructure. She shook the very foundation of people's life plans, forcing families to confront, their immediate resilience and their long-term stability.
It was a profound test. And now, in this quiet period of rebuilding, individuals and families are facing some extremely heavy questions.
Hmm.
They're looking at their damaged homes or their dreams of a home and just asking, where do we go from here?
That is precisely our mission for this deep dive.
Sure.
We are getting into the complex calculus facing prospective homeowners, both local and in the diaspora. Is this truly the moment to commit to buying a home? Or should they wait?
Or rebuild what they had. Or maybe, just maybe, seize this really difficult opportunity to move into something entirely new.
And it's not a simple question of timing, is it?
Not at all. The decision is complicated by, well, a perfect storm of financial challenges.
Mhm.
We're seeing rapidly escalating construction costs across the board.
And the mortgage rates.
Oh, the mortgage rates? The sources we looked at describe them in this really colorful way. Rates that feel like they ate too much ackee and can't calm down.
That's perfect.
They're high, they're sticky, and they are creating serious friction for local borrowers.
You're absolutely right that the financial hurdles are massive. But what our deep dive reveals is that the Jamaican real estate decision is, well, it's fundamentally unique.
Hmm.
It's rooted in culture and necessity, not just perfect spreadsheet timing.
Exactly. As Dean Jones, the founder of Jamaica Homes, frames it, a home in Jamaica is more than shelter. It's the anchor that keeps you steady when the winds of life try to carry you away.
That emotional value often outweighs the immediate economic math.
It has to. Because life doesn't wait for the perfect interest rate. People have needs right now.
Okay, so let's unpack this cultural imperative because it's the key differentiator here. If you're used to, say, the North American model, buying is often triggered by things like a job change, a tax break, or some calculated investment strategy.
No, very transactional.
But the sources show that in Jamaica, the motivations are fundamentally different. We have to look at family, legacy, and the pursuit of control.
We absolutely do. The reasons people are moving or investing today really boil down to three major emotional and practical drivers that often just supersede the monthly mortgage calculation.
Okay, let's start with the first one, this intensity of ownership and independence. The simple dream of owning your own yard.
It's such a powerful cultural concept. It's not just a plot of land. It is autonomy. It's having a place where the landlord can't send a note raising the rent without warning.
Right. Or decide what color your fence has to be.
Exactly. And critically, it's having the space where you can actually plant the things that matter. Callaloo, sorrel, that breadfruit tree that can feed the family for decades.
It's the prominence, being rooted.
Yes. And after Hurricane Melissa, that longing for permanence and stability it's dramatically intensified. Well, when the storm hit, people watched in horror as things that seemed permanent proved so fragile. One source described watching zinc sheets fly down Red Hills Road like they have wings.
Wow.
That kind of instability makes a secure concrete home a paramount practical priority, not just some distant dream.
Okay, but I have to challenge this based on the economics you just laid out. When someone is struggling with high inflation and these punishing interest rates, doesn't the immediate financial cost just override that cultural desire? How can the dream of a breadfruit tree survive a 10% interest rate?
That is the essential conflict. And the answer is that the decision isn't purely logical. The emotional cost of not owning is just too high for many.
I see.
Renting in Jamaica can be unstable. Sometimes it's subject to informal contracts or rapid changes, especially in high-demand areas. The uncertainty of renting post-disaster often feels more terrifying than the certainty of a high monthly mortgage payment on a stable asset.
So ownership secures legacy while renting. It secures nothing but temporary shelter.
You've got it. And that leads us right to the second driver, family and community as a lifeline. We might think of this as a nice bonus, but in Jamaica, living near family is essential.
It's the social safety net.
It is the social safety net, and Melissa reinforced this in the most visceral way. The community response to the hurricane was extraordinary. Sources describe families traveling huge distances just to check on relatives, neighbors sharing what little food they had.
Literally holding things together.
Literally.
Yeah.
Holding up tarpaulins together. So people are making buying decisions not based on the prettiest kitchen, but on who's closest.
Proximity to support.
Yeah, we're seeing these major movements, for instance, of Jamaicans from the diaspora moving back specifically to help aging parents whose vulnerability was exposed by the storm, or choosing a community because they know families nearby for after-school care.
So the real estate search criteria actually includes who will watch my kids and who can help me rebuild.
Absolutely. Dean Jones captured this insight perfectly. He said, when you buy a home in Jamaica, you're not just choosing walls. You're choosing who can knock on your door when the lights go out.
That's powerful.
That interconnected support system is factored right into the value of the property.
Now let's get to the third driver, which I found genuinely surprising, this trend of downshifting and choosing peace. I would have assumed that after a catastrophe, the desire is to upgrade, to build bigger, stronger. But many are actively downshifting.
It's a very modern response to a major crisis, isn't it? Simplicity has become a luxury. After surviving the intense stress of the hurricane, people just want life to feel lighter, easier.
It's not about more square footage.
No, it's about less maintenance, lower utility bills, less stress. They are prioritizing freedom over opulence.
So that large, older family home is maybe being traded for a smaller, newly built townhouse that meets modern building codes and is just easier to secure.
That's a very common scenario.
Yeah.
We also see a geographic downshift. People are moving away from the congested areas like Kingston and St. Andrew, seeking peace in outer parishes like St. Thomas, St. Mary, or Trelawney.
Okay, for our listeners, especially those in the diaspora, what does that move actually entail? Is it a short commute or a complete lifestyle change?
Oh, it's often a substantial lifestyle change. Moving from Kingston to, say, St. Thomas means you're trading that intense urban density for, well, slower infrastructure, longer commutes, potentially.
But the trade-off is?
The trade-off is a massive reduction in the cost of land, greater tranquility, and just a significantly lower stress level. For many, that move is the very definition of downshifting, trading, urban hassle for rural peace.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. With all these cultural drivers pushing people forward, many still try to time the market. They're waiting for those high interest rates to drop.
All right.
But the sources suggest this is completely futile in Jamaica. Trying to wait for the market to cool is like, what was the quote? Like waiting for a patty oven to cool. You'll just burn yourself.
That analogy is perfect because it highlights a fundamental difference in how the Jamaican housing market operates. It doesn't swing wildly based on quarterly reports. It's fundamentally stable and upward climbing, insulated by these structural local forces.
Okay, let's challenge that for a second. We're seeing global inflation, massive supply chain issues, local rates that are punishing. Why aren't we seeing a massive overdue correction?
We have to understand the 5 permanent forces at play. They act as a constant floor under property values. They're structural, they're long-term.
Okay, list them out, but then let's get into the mechanics of each one.
Okay. First, land scarcity, especially in key areas like Kingston and St. Andrew. Second, consistently high construction costs. Third, urban overpopulation. Fourth, that powerful cultural value on property as legacy. And finally, number 5, relentless diaspora demand.
Let's focus on scarcity first. Is it just that Jamaica is a small island, or is it more complex?
It's multifaceted. I mean, yes, it's an island with difficult terrain, which limits developable land. But there's also the complexity of land registration and titling.
Ah, the paperwork.
Exactly. Clear, documented land is a finite and highly desirable asset, and the process to bring new land to market is slow and costly. That administrative friction means supply can't easily surge to meet demand, which keeps prices firm.
And what about construction costs? If the cost of steel goes up globally, why aren't builders pausing, which should cool the market?
Because the need for housing doesn't pause. And what's more, post-Melissa, the focus on resilient construction, better hurricane straps, thicker concrete, has driven baseline costs even higher.
So safety is now a non-negotiable and more expensive standard.
Right. Builders can't compromise on that now, and those higher costs are just built into the new price floor.
That makes sense. Now let's tackle the biggest economic claim. The idea that Jamaica has never had a moment where prices went significantly down. Is that really true?
Historically, yes. The market might pause or move sideways for 6 months or a year, but prices have shown extraordinary resilience. They do crash. When faced with economic shocks, the forces we just listed, especially that cultural urgency and the diaspora's Remittance Power Act, as immediate stabilizers.
You mean local demand holds firm because of the legacy aspect?
And foreign currency demand keeps the prices, when denominated in Jamaican dollars, constantly appreciating.
Okay, so that brings us to the diaspora. How significant is this foreign investment in counteracting local economic uncertainty?
It's massive. Diaspora investment is less sensitive to local interest rates. A U.S.-based Jamaican might be getting a mortgage in U.S. dollars or just funding a purchase with cash from stronger foreign markets.
So there's always a buyer.
There's always a buyer waiting for property that is well-titled and well-located. It puts a very firm floor under the market.
But what about the bargains we hear whispered about post-hurricane? Surely there are some properties going cheap now.
We have to be very precise about this, and the sources clarify it beautifully. There are no market corrections. There are only storm discounts on storm damage.
Meaning?
If you buy a house for a reduced price because it's missing half a roof or needs structural repairs, you're not getting a market bargain.
You're engaging in a repair negotiation.
Precisely. You are assuming the risk and the cost of the repair, the core value of the land, the title, the location. That remains firm.
So if anything, the hurricane actually raised the cost of ownership long term.
In a way, yes. The biggest challenge for those buying damaged homes now isn't just the repair cost, it's the renewed difficulty and cost of securing robust insurance. Insurance companies are now extremely cautious.
So Melissa didn't lower prices. She raised the bar for what constitutes a secure, desirable property.
That's a great way to put it. The market is distinguishing very clearly between damaged assets and underlying property value.
Let's pivot to the emotional side of this. What were the non-negotiable hard lessons everyone learned from the storm about buying and building?
Beyond the obvious, like hurricane straps and concrete over wood, Melissa drove home the importance of elevation and drainage. Storm surge and flooding were major issues.
So buyers are now intensely focused on where the property sits in the landscape.
Oh, absolutely. And they learned the value of community support, knowing your neighbors, having that lifeline we discussed earlier. That knowledge is now being built into housing choices.
It sounds like every act of rebuilding, every decision to buy new is a deeply optimistic statement about the future.
It absolutely is. It's that intrinsic Jamaican determination. Every new foundation poured, every zinc sheet that goes back up is a quiet but powerful declaration, I believe in tomorrow.
A statement that fear won't win.
And that resilience is an active choice.
And what's the emotional return for the people who pushed past the fear and the high rates to move forward this year?
A sense of peace, mental clarity. That's the ultimate payoff. They talk about realizing they have been holding their breath for years, waiting for the right time.
But the right time never comes.
It doesn't. People who bought didn't wait for perfection. They moved because their life needed that space and stability to grow. It's about creating a sanctuary.
That internal reorganization happens once the external anchor is secured?
Yes. As Dean Jones noted, once that secure home falls into place, life starts fitting. It organizes the chaos. It allows the family to exhale and gives them the clarity to pursue what's next. That's a foundational stability that high interest rates just can't take away.
So what does this all mean? For the listener who is juggling the high cost of building versus the fear of waiting, how do they decide?
The core takeaway is crystal clear. Buying a home in Jamaica is not about timing the market, it's about timing your moment. You have to ignore the external noise and focus on a personal checklist.
So number one, is your job stable? And can you sustain the mortgage, accepting that rates are high for now?
Number two, do you have an urgent practical need for greater stability, safety, or space right now? Your personal needs carry more weight than market predictions.
3. Is the stress of renting unpredictable landlords, lack of security, outweighing the financial cost of ownership?
And finally, is securing property as a legacy for your family a paramount, non-negotiable goal? If the answers to those questions are yes, then the external climate becomes secondary.
The final piece of wisdom from the source material really drives this home. Waiting for the perfect moment is how some people stay stuck. Jamaica rewards the ones who move with intention.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
The people who are now settling into their new or rebuilt homes didn't wait for rates to drop. They moved because waiting was actively hindering their lives. They're settled, they're rooted, and they're home.
And that leads us to a final provocative thought for you to consider. The decision to buy a home in Jamaica is often described as spiritual. It's an act of choosing faith over fear, future over present uncertainty. This deep dive shows us that when major forces, whether a hurricane or crippling costs, challenge the status quo, the most powerful motivator is that human need for rootedness. So if your decision to find stability is spiritual, then we have to ask, what truly is the cost of waiting?